But there's also the case that I'm taking through the upper tribunal against the government, effectively, against the Disclosure and Barring Service, because New College Swindon referred me to the DBS on safeguarding grounds because I did not follow their gender reassignment policy and because I caused emotional harm to student A by not referring to her as a male. And I'm trying to fight to get off the barred list. Um, and this is proving incredibly difficult.
Kevin Lister, it's really nice to talk to you. You and I have crossed paths many times over the last few years due to the fact that you, like me, like many of Coalition for Marriage supporters, believe that there is man and there is woman, and those are kind of fixed categories. And believing that has got you into some trouble. And your tenacity of dealing with that is one reason why I wanted to talk to you as an encouragement to our viewers and our listeners. So Kevin, it's wonderful that you can join us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me on, Tony. It's a pleasure to be here, and it does feel strange in this time with all the technological advancements that we've got, and space telescopes that can look to the farthest reaches of the universe, that we have to come back, as you say, to talking about the basics of families, the basics of male and female, and it seems so paradoxical.
Yeah, it does. And there are other things at time of recording, all sorts of other things going on in Parliament which are affecting the whole concept of the dignity of human life and all sorts of things like that. We live in interesting times, as they say, Kevin. Now, you, as I understand it, you taught maths.
That's correct.
And so the background of your case is that you had somebody present in your class who wanted you to use different pronouns. So essentially, they wanted you to deny the evidence of your eyes and ears and lie to yourself and use a different gender when addressing that person. And you felt, I can't do that. So tell us a bit more about what happened.
Thanks. So let me go through the details. So I was teaching maths, further maths, and computing science at New College Swindon. So I'd relatively recently joined there. I was just starting my second year in the job. Really enjoying the job. Great colleagues to work with, superb students, brilliant working environment. So anyway, at the start of the second year, I had a student who sent me a message on Teams to say that she now wanted to be referred to with a male name. And it was a short message she sent me. And she said, it would be really helpful if you did this. Everybody else is doing it. Short message. And it was bizarre. So I immediately raised a safeguarding concern. It was kind of interesting because she didn't specify in her request that she wanted me to use male pronouns, just that she wanted me to use a male name. So obviously implicit in that is the idea that I'm supposed to know to use male pronouns. And clearly at that time, there's a lot of LGBT material scattered around the college, which I basically just ignored and focused on teaching maths. So anyway, so she sends me this message, can I now refer to her with this male name? I raised the safeguarding concern. I asked 3 questions in the safeguarding concern. I asked, was it parental consent? Was she making an informed decision? And was there a risk that she would self-medicate with cross-sex hormones? And I specifically said, in light of the Keira Bell case, should we now be taking a precautionary approach with this? And I also referred to the problems that she was having with academic attainment. She was on and up academically, no question about that. But she'd started from a low base. And I said, was those problems with academic attainment maybe behind her decision? So initially, I heard nothing from safeguarding. I went down immediately when I raised it to make sure it was going to be investigated. And then it all went quiet for a couple of days. So I then went down to the safeguarding officer to see what she had done before the next class I had with my student. And I couldn't believe what I was told. She said, it's college policy not to tell the parents. I just could not believe what I was hearing.
So this is an under 18, yeah?
She's under 18. My student's under 18. Yeah, she's 16, 17, definitely under 18. And the college policy is that they don't tell the parents, despite the fact that around the college, I was seeing a large amount of the LGBT material, and I hadn't really put everything into place in my mind. I came in to teach maths, and that was what I was focused on. I said I want this raised up, and she said, "Well, it already has been, and if you raise it up again, nothing's going to happen." And that was almost like an implied threat to me. If I raise it, it's going to reflect badly on me. I then said to her, "Well, is she making an informed decision?" And the safeguarding officer said, "Well, we don't know. We haven't really asked her. We can't find out." So, is there a risk she's going to take cross-sex hormones? Well, we don't know. The safeguarding officer says, we can't find out. And I say, well, how does that relate with the college's drug policy? And they said, well, we don't know. And it was just bizarre. It was absolutely bizarre. So I left the meeting annoyed, with no guidance. There's nothing in writing to say that I must use the male pronoun to refer to. I must basically socially transition her. So no guidance at all. So naturally, I didn't refer to her as a he. And I tried to be as gender neutral as I could in the class. I didn't want to use her old name because I would be accused of dead naming, and I didn't want to refer to her as a he, otherwise I'd be accused later on of socially transitioning. So I tried to gesture towards her, so open-handed gestures when I tried to address her in the class. And anyway, so about 2-3 weeks after this, my students in my further maths class, and there's a girls' maths competition run by the UK Maths Trust, and it's an external competition. Girls are invited to and volunteer to enter. No one's forced into it. So I introduce it to the girls in the further maths class, and they're being the usually reticent. No one wants to put the name forward, and trying to encourage them to do it, and say, anyone that wants to do it, I'll work with you over the lunchtime so we can practice and so forth. And then one or two girls put the names for, say, they put their hands up and say, I'll do it. So I'll write the girl's name down. Anyway, my student who's now looking to transition puts a hand up in the back of the class and kind of jokingly says across the whole of the class, "Can I still enter?" And I said, "Well, of course you can, because you're a girl." Kind of caught on the hop. And it was starting to occur to me at that point that the pressure on the LGBT message was so intense. So when she asked this bizarre question, it really kind of caught me on the hop. The best I could do was to say, "Well, yes, because you are a girl." And then she said, "Yeah, in that case, I'll do the competition." So I write her name up. I write her proper legal birth name again. So thinking on the hop here, that if she just chooses to do this competition, then she will need to enter it as a female because it's a girls' competition. It would be completely ridiculous of me to put a boy's name into this girls' competition, or to put her desired male name on the board. The whole thing was absurd.
Yeah, you being a logical mathematician and all that.
So she then waits behind after the class, and we have a chat, and she's and her concern was doing the competition and scoring badly. It wasn't doing the competition as a girl. And I said, look, have a go. It'll look good on your UCAS that you've had a go, even if you score badly. I said, I'll work with you over the lunchtimes. We can practice and going through the questions and developing your approach. You've got nothing to lose, and if you have a really bad mark, you just don't put it on your UCAS. She then burst into tears. And I was kind of taken aback, but maybe in some ways kind of half expecting it. So is it the transitioning thing that's upsetting you? And she said yes. So I said to her, you need to be really careful here. You need to make sure you understand all the issues and all the facts and all the consequences. Do you understand these? And she claimed that she did, but really I don't think she did at all. I tried to explain to her the pressure that it would put on others. On her parents and her immediate friends. I tried to explain to her that she couldn't rely on the NHS to provide all the additional healthcare that she would need over the course of her life. And I said, make sure that you don't get pushed into it by anybody else. I said, at the end of the day, it's your choice to do the maths competition, and it's your choice if you want to pursue this. It's not for me to advise, but make sure you don't get pushed into it. Make sure that it's your choice. That was the end of the conversation. I had no other conversation with her at all after that. So she then enters the girls' maths competition, and she didn't score well in the competition. I wasn't so much bothered about that. But what I saw, or what I interpreted when she entered the girls' maths competition, was that she was now seriously thinking about the fact that she was actually a girl in a girl's body, and not this delusion that she was a girl in a boy in a girl's body. So I read that as her signal, basically, to me, to everybody else, that she was not at all confident about her decision to transition. So I was even less inclined to try and go along with her, with the demand to socially transition her. In January the 28th of that academic year, so this is now 2021, her friend stays behind after class, and so student A hadn't come to class. A friend stays behind after class and demands that I refer to student A as a male. And I tried to explain to her why I did not think that was a good idea. It was a cult, it was a fad, it was going to end up in a massive pile of legal cases. It was dangerous and so on and so forth. And it would impose, pressure on her family and so forth. And I said, if you want to encourage your friend or help your friend, the best thing to do is to encourage her back to the class and give her your support as a strong math student. So anyway, so her friend writes everything down, and I suspect that she probably had a mobile on in her pocket and she was recording everything. And she did a perfect, almost word by word transcript of the conversation, and then submitted a complaint into the college that I was transphobic and that I did not believe that or accept that her friend was now a boy. This is very much the basis of the court case at the moment, that I had to believe that somebody was going to change the gender. So that then that complaint goes into the college. It goes to a lady called Charlotte Best, who was the quality manager. And then she instigates this witch hunt of an investigation. She takes everything as verbatim from student B. She calls a meeting with student B.
Student B is identifying as their own gender. There's no kind of...
But no, student B is a female, insisting on being a female, but just seems to want her friend to become a boy. So student B submits a complaint. There's an investigation meeting where Charlotte Best has an interview with student B and then invites student A to the meeting. And in the employment tribunal, when Charlotte Best is discussing that meeting, Charlotte Best says that student B spoke entirely for student A, and Charlotte Best had already written that in some of her documentation as well. So student A is now being dragged into this meeting with somebody else, another student, speaking on her behalf, and Charlotte Best accepting everything else that student B says on student A's behalf. I mean, this is absurd. I mean, this completely violates all safeguarding principles that you need to have a child-centered adult ascertaining the wishes and feelings of the child in question. So that clearly did not happen. Charlotte Best then interviews me to see. She tells me that there's a complaint that's been raised. I wasn't told what the complaint was before the meeting, so it was a bit of a trap of the meeting. I explained to her, all my concerns about, the health damage, the fact that I've had other students in New College Swindon who have transition female to male, and it has been a disaster for them. So I explained that I'd raised these safeguarding concerns which hadn't yet been answered. All of that was ignored, and Charlotte Best concluded that I had right-wing views and therefore I should be considered for referral to the Swindon Borough Council lad, or the local area designated officer for safeguarding. I mean, it is absolutely Kafkaesque.
Goodness me. Yeah. So you ended up getting sacked, and essentially for the conversation that you had with student B, not for the conversation that you had with student A, or the situation. Is that correct?
Effectively, that's right. It's because I'd expressed my views to student B, that then precipitates the complaints, that then precipitated my dismissal, that then precipitated the appeal, the tribunal appeal. And what they said was, I'd said all this stuff to student A. I'd put her name, her dead name on the whiteboard for the maths competition, how awful and evil and terrible that was, and how much emotional harm that had caused her. I mean, it's just you couldn't make the stupidity up.
Yeah, her dead name being, of course, her legal birth name that remains unchanged. But yeah. So completely bonkers. I mean, to anybody with any kind of seemingly sensible, objective mindset, completely ridiculous. I think, if somebody wants to be called by a different name, well, within the bounds of rationality, if that's their name or something. My name is Sue. How do you do? Different cultures have different names. That some are ascribed to males and females. That's one thing. But accepting and being forced to accept and say that you think somebody can change from being a female to being a male, that's a whole other game entirely,
exactly.
Isn't it, really?
Yeah, and one of the things that the college, one of the defences that the college used, and the defence that was accepted in the employment tribunal, was that it was just a name change, and it was just part of the policy for inclusion. And as you say, if James comes to my class and says, "Can you call me Jim?" Well, correct, no problem at all. We don't care about that. But when it is in the context of the transgender movement, which this name change clearly was, so this is like a name change as significant as from Mary to Joseph. So there's no commonality between the names. One's clearly a female name and one's clearly a male name. Then clearly the name change is associated with this social transition. So it's not just a name change. And for the college to claim it was just a name change was nonsense. For the employment tribunal to accept it was just a name change and not part of a social transition.
Yeah.
Beyond any expectations of normalcy that I would have had.
Yeah. So you went to an employment you took them to tribunal. You said, "I feel I was unfairly dismissed." The tribunal said, "No, actually, we're going to side with the school." What happened next?
So, as you say, I took the case to the employment tribunal. The tribunal sided with the school. It's interesting just in terms of the pathway getting to the employment tribunal. So I was in the NEU, and the NEU withdrew support. Because my beliefs went against theirs. They are incredibly pro LGBTQ plus. They want to have LGBTQ teachers and students and LGBT groups in schools, from nursery school right up to university.
And this, I mean, this is a sidebar conversation, Kevin, but it's another massive issue that the unions, which most teachers have no option but to join, are completely captured by this kind of crazy ideology, and that they're having to pay money on a monthly basis to organizations that really don't stand for what they believe themselves at all, and use their money for things that they wouldn't want it used for. And it's that's a whole other conversation which is out of my ballpark, but wow.
No, exactly. So as a teacher, you are stupid not to be in the union. And that's certainly what I was told when I did my teacher training, because if an accusation is made against you, you need the backup of the union to, if necessarily, take it all the way to court. So my union basically represented me for the first couple of meetings, and that was it. Then they withdrew their support on a stupid technicality, and basically the union rep said, "Well, we don't agree with you." Yeah. At the same time, my insurance company also withdrew their support. So I had no money coming in and had to represent myself. The legal costs were going to be about 100 grand. If I went to solicitors and barristers and everything, and I've just been fired. I don't have that kind of money, so I had to represent myself in probably what was one of the most, or amongst the most complex and most high-profile employment tribunal cases for many years,
Oh,
and
okay.
I lost it. Now, the basis of the employment tribunal, the basis of my appeal was unfair dismissal. Section 100, which is if you are dismissed because you've raised a safety concern and you've acted in accordance with that, then it's automatic dismissal. That was dismissed by the employment tribunal because the way I'd written the direct discrimination, or the way that the direct discrimination had been discussed in the preliminary hearing, the judge wouldn't let me plead for direct discrimination. And then the judge then narrowed down the indirect discrimination claim. So indirect discrimination occurs when an organization puts what's called a policy criteria or practice, a PCP, in place that acts against people with a particular protected characteristic. So in my case, my protected characteristic is gender critical beliefs. The college puts in place this gender reassignment policy. I mean, why must the college have a gender reassignment policy? It's beyond me. But anyway, the college puts this in place. My argument is that that policy was discriminatory, fundamentally discriminatory against people with gender critical beliefs like me. And what the judge then did was he narrowed the claim down to one paragraph in this entire document, which put me at a complete disadvantage. And then he dismissed the indirect discrimination on that basis. The ground for the appeal was that narrowing down of the indirect discrimination was impermissible. In the employment tribunal, what I also said was that my beliefs had not changed as a consequence of the gender reassignment policy. So in the judgment, they said, well, because your beliefs never changed, there was no intent to change your beliefs. So the second round of my appeal is that the college was trying to change my beliefs and trying to make me change other people's beliefs by the behavior that they were expecting me to follow. It wasn't sufficient for the judgment to say that my beliefs had not changed, therefore there was no intent to try and change my beliefs. Clearly there was intent to try and change my beliefs. It's just that I don't happen to believe a girl can become a boy. That's the second ground of appeal. So say the two grounds of appeal is that this narrowing down of the claim on indirect discrimination was impermissible. The second ground of appeal was that my beliefs were there was an attempt to change my beliefs. So it's now going to the Employment Appeals Tribunal sometime next year, from May next year. So we're really excited by that. I mean, Anna Lutfi, the barrister, her presentation of the legal arguments in May May the 29th, when we had the preliminary appeal, were absolutely brilliant. The judge was phenomenal. He did an extraordinarily good summary of the issues.
So you're just waiting now, essentially, for a date for an appeal against the tribunal's ruling.
That's right. Yeah. So it'll be a 2-day appeal. The judge has acknowledged the seriousness of this. It's a Category A case.
Yeah.
That engages complex legal arguments.
Yeah. It's very important for everybody in your position, I would have thought.
Yeah, it's really important, not just for people in my position. It's important for education, full stop. Because what the argument really is fundamentally about is the right to have academic freedom and free speech in educational settings. Now, it just so happens that this was about trans. It's fundamentally about the rights of teachers to have freedom to discuss issues and not to be forced into pursuing ideological premises by their employees, by their employers, rather.
And I would have thought Section 406 and 407 of the Education Act, I'm not a lawyer, but I would have thought it's pretty clear there that for political with a small p issues, you're allowed to have your own opinion, but you must express that other people have different opinions. And
Exactly. 406, the 406 and 407 in the Education Act are really powerful. But you try and take the school or the school system to court over that, and it's impossible. So we've already tried. We tried a judicial review against the Department for Education on 406 and 407. So for the listeners, Section 406 and 407 prohibit political indoctrination in the classroom. And obviously, the trans is a political indoctrination, and it's clearly been pursued through the education system from nursery up to university level. I was the claimant in the appeal to in a judicial review appeal against the Department for Education, and there was a number of other parents who were witnesses whose children had been transitioned in their schools behind their back, and these children have suffered terribly with the consequences. Now, I put my house on the line for that. So if the case went against me, it would have been my pension, my house that would have gone down the plug hole. The courts reviewed it and then did not allow the judicial review to proceed. So probably one of the biggest failures of this country to abide by 406 and 407 in the Education Act, we couldn't even take it to court. So in many ways, my cases that going into the Employment Appeals Tribunal will test 406 and 407 in the Education Act.
Yeah, because I know of a similarly failed case in Wales. Absolutely right. And you think this thing has got to be come before a senior court at some point, That's good. Listen, you've obviously, you mentioned Anna Lutfi, who is an excellent barrister. That's obviously costing you something. I believe you've got a crowdfunder set up now to pay for your legal fees.
Yeah. I've got a crowdfund. It's on GoFundMe.
Yep.
It's kind of running at about 34,000 at the moment.
So people can go and look at that if they want to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the link will probably be down below somewhere, I hope.
Yep.
But I cannot thank everybody enough who have contributed to that. So the money is hugely important. I would not be able to write this without that. But also, the number of people putting their names forward is really important. So even if a contribution is made of 50 pence, it's the name that adds to that adds to the weight of the significance of this case. It's worth saying that crowdfunder supports two cases. There's the case against the Employment Appeals Tribunal case against the initial judgment, but there's also the case that I'm taking through the upper tribunal against the government, effectively against the Disclosure and Barring Service, because New College Swindon referred me to the DBS on safeguarding grounds because I did not follow their gender reassignment policy and because I caused emotional harm to student A by not referring to her as a male. So I'm on the barred list and I'm trying to fight to get off the barred list. And this is proving incredibly difficult and incredibly costly, incredibly time consuming.
Yeah, good. Well, it's good that people never. And then, I mean, that moves me on to my final question, really, which is the personal cost. I mean, I know you're a resilient type of man, and they pick the wrong guy when they choose to have an argument with you because you're not going to back down, and that's brilliant. And I, hats off to you, and I applaud you so much. But this is tough because you can't work, and you can't earn, and
yeah, it's hugely tough. I mean, there's no question about it. People say I'm resilient. Well, to a point. This is the amount of times I wake up at night, sweating and panting over this. The stress has been terrible. It's had It's caused me significant health problems. So it has been enormously stressful. I've not been able to work for over 3 years now. Even by the time all this sorts itself out, by the time I get the appeal through the upper tribunal, that I go through the Employment Appeals Tribunal. It would be at least another 18 months, with the best of fair winds behind me, by which time I'll be 64 and a half. Now, no one's ever going to want to employ a 64-and-a-half-year-old teacher. So my teaching career has been obliterated. And not only has my teaching career been obliterated, but when you are on the barred list, you might as well be under house arrest. Because I cannot drive a van for Tesco. So one of the things that I did when I got fired was get my van driving qualification and applied for Tesco's and Waitrose to be a van driver. And I couldn't get a van driving job because I'm on the barred list.
My goodness. So it's not just teaching. Oh,
no,
my goodness.
No. My partner runs the local athletics club. And I used to go and help her. I can't go and help her in the local athletics club because I'm on the barred list.
And the other thing is, if and when you, which we hope you eventually do, become successful in your legal bids, the other side, the people that put you through this, will face nothing. They hide behind a veil of corporate lawyers and they just get on with their lives and do it to the next person.
What my belief is that unless we can hold people personally accountable for the damages that they have caused, young people in particular, then this will not stop. This movement or something similar will emerge like a phoenix from the ashes of it. One of my intents is that if I can succeed against the DBS through the upper tribunal by demonstrating that New College Swindon made an untrue claim, an untrue safeguarding claim against me, and I'm pretty sure I can do so given the evidence, then I can then sue the individual managers at New College Swindon for making a false claim or for supporting others to do the same. So hopefully, if things fall correctly, then I can hold the people who've caused this harm to account.
Tell me when you've got that crowdfunder set up, because I'll be there.
But what I've also said to the DBS is that the people who have committed the safeguarding violations is not me, it's the college management. And I've listed all the members of the college management team who have made the false accusations, who've encouraged my students to start taking cross-sex hormones without any medical guidance.
Yeah.
And I've said to the DBS that they should be investigated for safeguarding violations.
Absolutely right.
If my case falls in my favor, that I'm taken off the barred list, then it opens the doorway now to mass referrals to the DBS of teachers in schools who are encouraging children to present in the opposite body, and also for parents, for other teachers, for students to then refer teachers to the DBS. Those parents and students who have been have suffered harm as a consequence. So it opens up a massive can of worms, and I think everybody at the moment, as best I can see, as best I can surmise, is that they're all trying to keep the lid on this box.
Yep. And you're doing it for the sake of the students, but you're also doing this, Kevin, for the sake of those who aren't in your position to be able to stand up and speak out. A lot of people won't be brave enough to say what they think anyway, because they know they'll lose their jobs and they can't afford to lose their jobs. I think that what you're doing is so important and so meaningful for those people, and that's why I want to tell people about it, more people about it. And even those people, there'll be others as well who've lost their jobs and haven't had the wherewithal that you've had to be able to pursue it legally. So well done to you. It's very important that we support you in this, for the sake of the children. Right. First of all, for the sake of, in terms of the definition of marriage and the idea that there is man and there is woman, and those are immutable characteristics, very important for the sake of free speech, for the whole chilling effect around education. These sorts of cases are fundamental. So, I'm really glad that we know each other, that you've decided to pursue this. and all strength to your elbow, Kevin.
Thank you
It's a
very
real
much.
joy. I know there's no words I can give you to stop those night terrors. But just know that there are thousands of people who are rooting for you and who are so glad that you have been, cometh the hour, cometh the man, and you are in your own way an absolute superhero. So very well done, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Tony.
When you do win next time, when we hear something, come back and tell us the update and we'll take it from there.
Of course. Yeah, yeah. Be
Kevin
delighted.
Lister, keep up the great work.
Thank you.